Captain Daniel Brooks stood in the ruins of what used to be the Galactic Council embassy in Geneva. Smoke still rose from the collapsed buildings around him. The air smelled like burning metal and concrete dust. He looked at the transmission array his team had built from salvaged parts. It was crude, but it would work. It had to work. "Sir, the signal is ready," said Lieutenant Maya Foster. She wiped dirt from her face with the back of her hand. "We can broadcast when you give the order." Daniel nodded. He thought about everything that had happened in the past 2 months, everything that led to this moment. The message he was about to send would change the galaxy forever. But first, he needed to remember how it all started. 2 months earlier, the sky above Geneva had filled with alien ships. They were massive, gleaming vessels that made Earth's technology look like children's toys. The Galactic Council had finally come to Earth. Ambassador Carter had prepared for this moment her entire career. She believed first contact would be humanity's greatest achievement. She was wrong. The Council's representative, a tall creature named here, looked down at the humans with cold eyes. His species, controlled the Council. They had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. Here spoke in a voice that was translated into every human language simultaneously. "People of Earth, the Galactic Council has evaluated your world. You possess resources that the galaxy requires. You will surrender 70% of your planetary resources to Council authority. You will accept Council governance over your world. You have 48 hours to comply." Stood before the alien delegation in the Grand Assembly Hall. World leaders sat behind her, watching in stunned silence. She kept her voice steady. "Ambassador here, we appreciate the Council's interest in Earth. However, we cannot accept these terms. We propose a diplomatic negotiation to establish fair trade and mutual cooperation." Here laughed. The sound echoed through the hall like grinding metal. "You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. This is an order. Comply or face corrective military action." "You're asking us to give up our freedom," said. Her hands were shaking, but her voice remained strong. "We won't do that, not now, not ever." "Then you choose death," here replied. He gestured to his guards. "Your primitive pride will cost billions of lives. The enforcement fleet will arrive in 48 hours. When they do, your world will burn until you beg for mercy." The Council delegation left Earth that same day. Their ships vanished into the sky, leaving humanity to face an impossible choice: surrender everything or fight a war they couldn't win. President Hayes called an emergency session within hours. The Situation Room deep beneath Washington was packed with military leaders, scientists, and advisors. Generals stood at the display showing Earth's defenses. They looked pathetic compared to what was coming. "We have orbital defense stations, but they're outdated," said. His voice was grim. "Our fleet consists of 12 deep space vessels. The Council's enforcement fleet has over 300 warships. We can't win a conventional war." "Then we don't fight a conventional war," said Admiral Lisa. She leaned forward, her eyes hard. "We've been studying Council technology for years. Ever since they first surveyed our system, we know their weaknesses." "Do we have enough time?" asked. "We'll have to make enough time," Lisa replied. For 48 hours, Earth's governments worked as one for the first time in human history. Old enemies became allies. Every nation contributed everything they had. Scientists shared research without borders. Military forces coordinated strategies across continents. Factories ran day and night producing weapons, ammunition, and supplies. Prepared humanity's official response. She knew what it would mean, what it would cost, but when she stood before the world to deliver Earth's answer, her voice never wavered. "To the Galactic Council, this is Earth's response to your ultimatum. We reject your terms. We will not surrender our freedom. We will not bow to threats. Humanity has faced extinction before. We have survived ice ages, plagues, and wars. We have crossed oceans and reached for the stars. We did not come this far to surrender without a fight. If you want our world, you'll have to take it from us. But know this, we would rather die free than live as slaves." The message was broadcast across every communication channel. Every human on Earth heard it. In the streets, people gathered. Some cried, some prayed, some prepared for war, but all of them stood together. The Council's response came quickly. Here's face appeared on every screen across Earth. "Your defiance is noted. Your destruction is guaranteed. The enforcement fleet is already approaching your system. In 3 days, Earth will learn the price of refusing the Council's mercy." Those 3 days were the longest in human history. Cities evacuated. Families said goodbye. soldiers took their positions. The world held its breath and waited for the storm. Daniel remembered standing on the roof of his apartment building in New York, watching the stars. Somewhere up there, an alien fleet was coming to destroy everything he loved. He thought about his daughter, who was evacuated to an underground shelter in Colorado. He thought about never seeing her again. But he also thought about what it said, about choosing to die free rather than live as slaves. He thought about all the people throughout history who had fought for freedom against impossible odds. Some of them had won. Most of them had died, but all of them had mattered. Now, standing in the ruins of Geneva, Daniel looked at the transmission array. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you threatened humanity. The Council had expected an easy victory. They had expected Earth to burn. They had expected humans to beg for mercy. They were right about one thing: Earth had burned, but it didn't break. "Lieutenant Foster," Daniel said, "begin the transmission. It's time the Council learned the truth." Maya activated the array. The signal would reach every Council world. Every species under there, the Galactic Enforcement Fleet, emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. 300 warships appeared like a swarm of metal insects, blotting out the stars. Fleet Commander here stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the primitive blue world on his display. This would be quick. This would be easy. "All ships battle formation," he commanded. "Prepare to broadcast final warning." The fleet moved toward Earth in perfect military precision. They had done this dozens of times before. Rebellious worlds always thought they could resist. They always learned otherwise. Here opened a channel to Earth. "Humans of Earth, this is your last opportunity to surrender. Transmit your acceptance now, or we will commence planetary bombardment." Silence answered him. "Sir, we're detecting no response from the surface," said his communications officer. "Should we wait?" "No," Here said. "They had their chance. All ships advance, destroy their orbital defenses, and begin landing operations." The fleet surged forward. Earth's orbital defense stations were old, built from early human space technology. They looked fragile against the Council's warships. Here almost felt disappointed. Where was the fight these humans promised? Then the stations opened fire. Energy beams lanced through space, striking Council shields. The shields held easily, but here noticed something. The weapons were more powerful than intelligence reports suggested. The humans had modified them somehow. "Return fire," he ordered. "Destroy those stations." Council warships unleashed their weapons. One by one, the human stations exploded in brilliant flashes, but they kept fighting until the very end. Each station took several volleys to destroy. Each one damaged at least one Council ship before falling. It wasn't enough to stop the fleet, but it was more than here expected. "Sir, the stations were broadcasting data during the battle," his science officer reported. "They were scanning our shield frequencies." "Irrelevant," Here said. "Primitive technology cannot overcome our superiority. Continue the advance." The fleet reached Earth orbit, launched by the hundreds, heading for major cities across the planet. Ground Commander Al led the landing forces. He had conquered 12 worlds for the Council. Earth would be 13. His ship descended through the atmosphere toward New York City. Below, he could see the massive human settlement, millions of targets. They would surrender once they saw Council forces, or they would die. Either way, the result was the same. They landed in Central Park. Al emerged with his soldiers, expecting to see humans fleeing in panic. Instead, the park was empty, too empty. The buildings around them stood silent like tombstones. "Spread out," Al ordered. "Find the humans, take prisoners." His forces moved into the city streets. The silence was unnatural. Where was everyone? Then Al heard it, a whistle, sharp and clear, cutting through the air. The buildings exploded. Charges detonated all around his forces. Human soldiers emerged from tunnels, from subway entrances, from buildings that looked abandoned. They were everywhere. Colonel Brandon led a company of Marines from underground positions. They had waited for the Council forces to land, to spread out, to enter the trap. "Fire," Brandon shouted. Human weapons roared. They weren't as powerful as Council weapons, but they were enough, especially when fired at close range from covered positions against an enemy that expected no resistance. Council soldiers fell, their shields overloaded by sustained fire. Al retreated to his, calling for air support. But human forces had planned for that too. Modified surface-to-air missiles streaked upward, targeting Council aircraft with frightening accuracy. 3 exploded before they could provide support. Across the globe, the same scene repeated. In Beijing, Commander Cooper's regiment ambushed Council forces in narrow streets where their heavy weapons couldn't be used effectively. In Mumbai, Major led her troops in hit-and-run attacks that frustrated the invaders. In Lagos, human defenders turned the sprawling city into a maze where every corner hid danger. The Council had expected to land, overwhelm the defenders, and accept surrender within hours. Instead, they found themselves fighting for every street, every building, every inch of ground. The humans weren't just resisting, they were winning. In New York, Brandon's forces lured a Council into the subway tunnels. The aliens followed, confident in their superior armor and weapons. But the tunnels were dark, cramped, and confusing. The Council soldiers couldn't use their formations. They couldn't coordinate their heavy weapons. Lieutenant Henderson waited with his squad at a junction. They had rigged the entire section with modified explosives. Chief Engineer Palmer and Doctor had spent years studying captured alien technology. They discovered that Council shields were vulnerable to specific frequency combinations. The explosives were calibrated exactly right. "Wait for it," whispered to his team. "Let them get closer." The Council soldiers advanced through the tunnel, their weapons lighting the darkness. 40 of them, all heavily armed, watched them on his scanner. When they reached the junction, he pressed the detonator. The explosion tore through the tunnel like thunder. The Council's shields flashed and died, overloaded by the precise frequency burst. The soldiers inside never had a chance, and his squad moved forward through the smoke, securing weapons and equipment from the fallen enemies. "Command, this is Henderson," reported on his radio. "Subway trap successful, target eliminated." "Copy that, Henderson," came Brandon's voice. "Similar reports coming in from all sectors. The Council is taking heavy casualties." In orbit, Here watched his tactical display with growing alarm. Red markers showed destroyed units. Yellow markers showed units under heavy attack. There were too many of both. How were these primitives doing this? "Sir, we've lost contact with 12 ground units," his tactical officer reported. "Landing forces are requesting reinforcements." "Send them," Here snapped. "Increase bombardment of military targets. Show these humans the price of resistance." But the humans had evacuated their obvious military bases. The Council bombardment hit empty buildings while human forces operated from hidden positions. Every tactical decision the Council made was countered. Every advantage they tried to press was turned against them. Ground Commander Al finally understood the truth. The humans hadn't just prepared defenses, they had prepared a trap. The entire planet was one massive ambush. Every city, every defensive position, every evacuation route had been planned. The humans wanted the Council to land. They wanted them to spread out. They wanted them vulnerable. "Pull back to the landing zones," Al ordered his forces. "We need to regroup." But pulling back meant retreating. It meant admitting that these primitives were defeating them. It meant the Council could lose. In New York, Brandon watched Council forces withdraw from the city. His troops cheered, but he knew this was just the beginning. The Council would regroup. They would adapt. They would come back stronger. But so would humanity. "All units hold positions," Brandon ordered. "Gather intelligence, capture any equipment they left behind. When they come back, we'll be ready." In orbit, Here stared at his tactical display. Half his ground forces were either destroyed or retreating. The humans were fighting with a ferocity and skill that shouldn't be possible. They were using Council technology against them. They were adapting faster than any species he'd ever encountered. For the first time in his career, Here felt something he had never felt before: doubt. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Director Morgan walked through corridors carved from solid rock. The facility had been built in secret over 30 years. It was called Project Defiance, and today it would finally reveal its purpose to the world. She entered the command center where hundreds of scientists and engineers worked at their stations. On the main display, she could see the tactical situation across Earth. Council forces were regrouping after their failed first assault. They would come again, harder and more prepared. But this time, humanity would be ready with more than just guerrilla tactics. Doctor met her at the central platform. His eyes were red from lack of sleep, but they shone with excitement. "Director, the quantum disruptors are ready for deployment. All units have been distributed to military forces worldwide." Nodded, show me the test results again. Pulled up the data on a smaller screen. When we studied Council scanner data from their first survey of our system, we discovered something. Their shields operate on specific quantum frequencies. They're incredibly strong, but they're also predictable. We developed a weapon that disrupts those frequencies. In simple terms, asked. We can turn off their shields, said with a smile. Once the shields are down, their ships and armor are just metal, tough metal, but nothing our weapons can't handle. Looked at the numbers, 30 years of secret research. Billions spent on technology that might not work, but it had to work. Humanity's survival depended on it. Give the order, she said. Activate all units. It's time to show the Council what we've really been doing all these years. Across Earth, military commanders received new weapons and equipment. Admiral Mitchell stood on the bridge of the EDS Defiant, looking at the quantum disruptor arrays that had just been installed. His ship and 11 others had been hidden on the dark side of the moon for weeks, waiting for this moment. All ships, this is Admiral Mitchell, he said over the fleet channel. We've been preparing for this day since the Council first showed us we weren't alone in the universe. They thought we were primitives who would bow to their threats. Today, we prove them wrong. Today, we fight back with everything we have. Captain Gregory Park commanded one of the frigates in Mitchell's fleet. He looked at his crew. They were scared. They were facing an enemy with superior numbers and technology, but they were also determined. Every person on these ships had volunteered, knowing they might not survive. Weapons charged, his tactical officer reported. Quantum disruptors online. Good, Gregory said. Remember your training. Target their shield generators first. Once the shields are down, conventional weapons will do the rest. The human fleet emerged from behind the moon, accelerating toward the Council forces in Earth orbit. Alarms blared on every Council ship. Where had these vessels come from? Their sensors showed the human fleet approaching, smaller ships moving with surprising speed. Here saw them on his display. 12 ships, they're sending 12 ships against my fleet, he laughed. All weapons open fire, destroy them. The Council fleet unleashed a wall of energy. Beams and missiles streaked toward the human ships. But the humans didn't try to dodge. They flew straight into the attack, their own shields absorbing the damage. Now, Admiral Mitchell shouted. Every human ship fired its quantum disruptors simultaneously. Invisible waves of energy washed over the Council fleet. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then, one by one, the Council's shields flickered and died. Shields down, someone shouted on the Defiant's bridge. All Council vessels showing 0 shield strength. All ships conventional weapons free, Mitchell ordered. Fire everything. The human fleet opened up with missiles and energy weapons. Without their shields, the Council ships were vulnerable. Explosions blossomed across the fleet as human weapons found their targets. Ships that had seemed invincible minutes ago were now burning wrecks spinning through space. Gregory watched his frigate's missiles impact a Council destroyer. The alien ship broke apart, atmosphere and debris spilling into the void. He felt no joy, only grim satisfaction. This was necessary. This was survival. Here stared in disbelief as his fleet died around him. How is this possible? Our shields are the most advanced in the galaxy. Sir, the humans are using some kind of quantum disruption technology, his science officer reported, panic in her voice. It's overloading our shield generators at the quantum level. We can't compensate. Then restore shields manually, reroute power, do something, Here screamed. But it was too late. Half his fleet was already destroyed or disabled. The rest were trying to retreat, but the human ships pursued them relentlessly. This wasn't supposed to happen. The Council was supposed to be invincible. On Earth's surface, the ground war shifted dramatically. Human forces received quantum disruptor rifles and grenades. Soldiers who had been fighting with outdated weapons against superior armor now had equalizers. General Torres led the counteroffensive in North America. Her forces emerged from their defensive positions and attacked the Council landing zones. The aliens tried to form defensive lines, but their personal shields failed under quantum disruption. Their armor, once impenetrable, became just heavy metal suits. In Beijing, Commander Cooper's regiment pushed Council forces back through the streets they had captured. The aliens retreated in confusion, unable to understand why their technology was failing. Human soldiers advanced block by block, liberating the city. Colonel Brandon coordinated the assault in New York. His forces had been holding the subway tunnels and underground positions. Now they came to the surface with quantum weapons blazing. Council soldiers who had seemed unstoppable hours ago now fell back, their technological advantage erased. Major led her troops in Mumbai, using the narrow streets to trap retreating Council forces. Without their shields and superior weapons, the aliens were just soldiers in a hostile city, facing an enemy that knew every corner, every building, every hiding place. Ground Commander Al watched his forces crumble. He tried to organize a retreat to the landing zones, but human forces were everywhere. They had been waiting for this moment, planning for it. The quantum disruptors changed everything. "All units fall back to orbit," he ordered. "Request immediate evacuation." But there were no evacuation ships coming. In orbit, the human fleet had destroyed or disabled most of the Councils. The few that remained were fleeing the system. Al realized with horror that he and his forces were stranded. In space, Admiral Mitchell watched the last Council ships retreat. His fleet had lost 3 vessels with heavy damage to 4 more, but they had defeated a force 25 times their size. The impossible had happened. "Sir, the Council fleet is retreating beyond the moon," his tactical officer reported. "Should we pursue?" Mitchell thought about it. His ships were damaged. His crews were exhausted, but the enemy was broken running. "Yes," he said. "We pursue, we don't let them regroup, we end this now." The human fleet accelerated, chasing the retreating Council ships. Behind them, Earth burned in places, but it still stood. Humanity had faced extinction and survived. More than that, they had won. President Hayes stood before the assembled leaders of Earth's nations. The emergency session was held in a bunker beneath London, one of the few major government facilities still intact. On screens around the room, representatives from every nation watched and waited. "The Council's enforcement fleet has been defeated," said. Her voice was steady, but everyone could hear the weight behind her words. "We have won a victory that nobody thought possible, but we all know this isn't over." Generals stood and activated a tactical display. "Our forces captured Ground Commander Al and over 3,000 Council soldiers. We've also secured dozens of their ships, including 2 destroyers and a command frigate. The intelligence we've gathered is significant." "What have we learned?" asked the Chinese premier. "Everything," replied. "Ship designs, communication protocols, navigation data, and something more important. We've learned that Earth isn't the first world the Council has done this to." The room fell silent. Admiral Lisa stepped forward and brought up new information on the displays. "The Council maintains an empire of 47 subjugated species. They use the same strategy every time. They approach with offers of membership and cooperation. Once they've studied the target world's defenses and resources, they return with an ultimatum: surrender or face military action." "How many species resisted?" asked. 15, Lisa answered. "All of them were conquered. Their worlds were stripped of resources. Their populations were enslaved or scattered. Earth is the first world to successfully defend itself." Carter, who had just returned from coordinating relief efforts in Geneva, spoke up. "Then we have a responsibility. If the Council has done this to other species, and if they're still oppressing those worlds, we need to act." "Act how?" asked the Russian president. "We just barely survived defending our own world." "We take the fight to them," said. Everyone turned to look at her. "The Council's power is based on fear. They convince the galaxy that resistance is impossible. We've proven that's a lie. If we sit here and wait, the Council will rebuild their fleet and come back. But if we go on the offensive, if we show other oppressed species that the Council can be defeated, we can break their empire." "You're proposing we invade Council space?" The European Union representative looked shocked. "I'm proposing we liberate it," corrected. "We have their navigation data, we know where their outposts are, we know where they're vulnerable, and most importantly, we have the one thing they never expected: we have hope." The vote was close, but it passed. Earth would take the war to the Council. Admiral Lisa was given command of the strike force. She chose her best ships and crews, knowing this mission might be a one-way trip. The fleet departed 2 weeks after the invasion ended. 12 warships, including the EDS Defiant under Captain Gregory Park's command. They carried quantum disruptors, captured Council weapons, and the determination of people who had nothing left to lose. Their first target was Station, a Council outpost 3 light-years from Earth. According to captured data, the station served as a regional command center and supply depot. It was also lightly defended, with most Council forces still trying to regroup after the Earth disaster. The human fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The station hung in orbit around a red dwarf star, a massive structure of metal and energy shields. Docking bays lined its surface, currently holding a dozen Council ships. "This is Admiral to all ships," Lisa said over the fleet channel. "Remember, our goal is to capture the station intact. We need the intelligence and supplies. Disable, don't destroy. Hit them with quantum disruptors first, then board." Captain Gregory Park positioned his frigate for the attack. His crew was ready, weapons charged, boarding teams standing by. He thought about his family back on Earth. He was doing this for them, for all of humanity. "All ships attack," Lisa ordered. The human fleet accelerated toward station. Alarms wailed across the outpost as defenders scrambled to respond. But they were too slow. The Council still didn't understand what had happened at Earth. They didn't know about the quantum disruptors. Human ships fired their special weapons. The station's shields flickered and died. Conventional weapons followed, targeting weapon emplacements and docking bays. Council ships tried to launch, but most were destroyed or disabled before they could leave their berths. Commander Jason Taylor led the boarding teams. His Marines launched from assault ships in armored pods, crashing through the station's hull. They fought through corridors, room by room, overwhelming the surprised defenders. The battle for station lasted 4 hours. When it was over, the human flag flew over the command center. Captain Stone's cruiser established a blockade to prevent any Council ships from escaping. They had won their first battle outside Earth's solar system. Chief Intelligence Officer Hayes led the team that secured the station's data banks. What they found was worse than anyone expected. Files detailing the Council's conquests, records of enslaved populations, maps showing the locations of occupied worlds and military bases. "Admiral, you need to see this," said, bringing up a specific file. "This is a list of species currently under Council control, billions of people living under occupation." Lisa looked at the data. She saw worlds stripped of resources, populations forced into labor, entire civilizations reduced to servants of the Council's empire. Anger burned in her chest. "Broadcast this," she ordered. "Use the Council's own communication network. I want every species in the galaxy to see what we found. Let them know the truth about their masters." The broadcast went out across Council space. For the first time, oppressed populations saw proof of the Council's crimes. They saw evidence that other worlds had suffered the same fate, and they saw something else. They saw that Earth, a single world, had defeated the Council's enforcement fleet and captured one of their stations. Rebellions began within days. On Prime, workers in the mining facilities rose up against their Council overseers. On military forces loyal to the original government seized control of the capital. On III, the entire population simply refused to work, bringing Council operations to a halt. The galaxy was waking up. The illusion of Council invincibility was shattered. Species that had been oppressed for generations saw a chance for freedom. But the human fleet wasn't done. Captain Daniel Brooks volunteered for a special mission. He would take a single ship, the EDS Messenger, to the Councils. He would carry proof of Earth's victory. He would deliver humanity's message directly to the beings who had tried to enslave them. "Are you sure about this?" Admiral asked him before departure. "You'll be one ship in enemy territory. They could destroy you before you even reach Prime." "They could," Daniel agreed. "But they won't. They need to know what happened. They need to understand that we're not going away, and someone needs to look them in the eye and tell them that Earth fought back." "What if they arrest you? What if they execute you?" Daniel smiled. "Then I'll be a martyr. Either way, the message gets delivered." The EDS Messenger departed station 3 days after its capture. Daniel and his crew of 20 made the 2-week journey to the Council's capital world. They passed through systems where rebellions were already. They saw Council forces struggling to maintain order against populations that had finally found courage to resist. As they approached Prime, massive defense platforms targeted their ship. Daniel transmitted the diplomatic codes captured from Here's flagship. The codes worked. The platforms held their fire. "Prime Control, this is the Earth Vessel Messenger," Daniel said. "I am Captain Daniel Brooks. I carry a message for the Galactic Council. I demand an audience before the full assembly." There was a long pause, then a reply came. "Earth vessel, you are cleared to approach the orbital station. You will dock under guard and submit to security protocols." "Understood," Daniel replied. He turned to his crew. "Well, we got this far. Let's see if they're ready to listen." The messenger docked at the massive orbital station above Prime. Daniel and 4 of his crew were escorted by heavily armed council guards through gleaming corridors. They passed aliens from dozens of species, all staring at the humans with expressions ranging from fear to curiosity to hope. Finally, they reached the council chamber. The doors opened to reveal the ruling body of the galaxy. 12 species, seated in a vast circular chamber. And in the center, in chains, sat former fleet commander here. He looked broken, defeated, a warning to others about the price of failure. Daniel walked to the center of the chamber. He looked up at the council members. These beings had tried to enslave his world. They had killed millions of humans, and now he stood before them, a representative of the species they had failed to conquer. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Daniel Brooks stood in the center. Above him, on raised platforms arranged in a circle, sat representatives of the 12 ruling species. Their faces showed different emotions. Some looked angry. Some looked afraid. A few looked curious. "I am Captain Daniel Brooks of Earth," he said again, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "2 months ago, your enforcement fleet came to my world with an ultimatum. Surrender or die. You expected us to bow. You expected us to beg for mercy. You were wrong." The counselor, a female named who had taken here's position after his disgrace, leaned forward. "You dare come here after destroying our fleet, after killing thousands of council soldiers." "We defended ourselves," Daniel replied calmly. "You attacked us. We fought back. Every human who died, every city that burned, every life destroyed is on you, not on us." "Your species is primitive," shouted the representative. "You should have accepted council guidance." "Guidance?" Daniel laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Is that what you call it? We call it slavery. We've seen your records. We know what you've done to other species. The mining colonies where workers die by the thousands. The agricultural world stripped to desert. The civilizations destroyed because they wouldn't surrender their freedom." He activated a holographic projector he had brought. Images filled the chamber. Files captured from station. Records of council atrocities. Proof of systematic oppression across the galaxy. "This is what you are," Daniel said. "Not guardians of peace, not protectors of civilization. You're conquerors who use pretty words to hide ugly truths." The chamber erupted in shouting. Some counselors demanded Daniel be removed. Others called for his execution. But Elder Counselor Ra, a tall being from an ancient species called the Eternals, raised her hand for silence. "Let him speak," she said. Her voice was quiet but carried authority. "We have heard lies for too long. Perhaps it is time to hear truth." The chamber quieted. Daniel nodded his thanks to Ra. "You want to know how we defeated you? You want to know how a primitive species destroyed your fleet? I'll tell you." He paced slowly, making eye contact with each council member. "You measured us by our technology. You counted our ships and weapons and decided we were weak. But you didn't understand what makes humanity strong. It's not our technology. It's not even our weapons." "Then what?" asked, genuine confusion in her voice. "Desperation," Daniel said. "You gave us a choice between slavery and death, so we chose a third option. We chose to fight with everything we had. We studied your technology for years, waiting for this moment. We built weapons specifically to counter your defenses. We planned every battle, every trap, every strategy." He pulled up new images, showing the Battle of New York, the orbital combat, the liberation of Station. "We won because we had to win, because losing meant the end of everything we are. You've conquered so many worlds that victory became easy. You forgot that desperate people are dangerous." The counselor, a being that looked like a crystalline spider, spoke in a voice like grinding stones. "What does Earth want? Revenge, to conquer us as we tried to conquer you." "No," Daniel said firmly. "We want justice. We want you to free every species you've enslaved. We want you to return the resources you've stolen. We want you to dissolve this corrupt council and let the galaxy govern itself." "Impossible," stood, her scales rippling with anger. "The council maintains order across 1,000 systems. Without us, the galaxy would fall into chaos." "The galaxy is already in chaos," Daniel replied. "Rebellions are starting on 20 worlds. Your own forces are scattered and demoralized. Your empire is collapsing. The only question is whether you fall fighting or whether you step down with dignity. You threaten us, the representative stood as well. One world against the entire council. Not one world, Daniel corrected. Earth is just the beginning. Every species you've oppressed is watching this meeting. They're waiting to see if we can stand up to you. If we can, they will too. Your empire is built on fear. We've broken that fear. Without it, you have nothing. Elder Ra stood slowly. The chamber fell silent again. He speaks truth, she said. I have warned this council for centuries that our methods were unsustainable, that ruling through fear and force would eventually lead to our destruction. You all ignored me. Now we face the consequences. What do you suggest? Asked another counselor, a floating being of pure energy from the species. I suggest we listen to Earth's terms, Ra said. She looked at Daniel. What exactly is your proposal? Daniel took a breath. This was the moment everything depended on. Earth proposes a new galactic council, one where every species has a voice, not just the powerful, one where worlds join voluntarily, not through conquest, one where the goal is cooperation, not domination. And if we refuse, asked, then Earth will support every rebellion against you, Daniel said. We'll arm them with quantum disruptors. We'll share the technology that defeated your fleet. We'll help them fight until your empire falls apart. It might take years. It might cost millions of lives, but we will not stop until every enslaved world is free. The counselors looked at each other. Some were angry, some were frightened, but all of them understood the reality. Their fleet was shattered. Their military forces were scattered. Their subject species were rising in rebellion. Earth was offering them a way out that didn't end in complete destruction. This is a difficult decision, Ra said. We will need time to discuss and vote. Take the time you need, Daniel replied. But know this, Earth is not going away. We're part of the galaxy now, whether you like it or not. You can accept us as equals, or you can try to destroy us and fail again. The choice is yours. The council dismissed Daniel and his crew to guest quarters while they debated. For 3 days, arguments raged in the chamber. Some counselors wanted war, wanted to rebuild the fleet and crush Earth once and for all. Others saw the writing on the wall and understood that the old order was finished. On the 3rd day, Daniel was summoned back to the chamber. Elder Ra spoke for the council. We have reached a decision. The Galactic Council accepts Earth's proposal. We will dissolve the current structure and form a new assembly where all species have equal representation. We will begin the process of granting independence to occupied worlds. We will return confiscated resources where possible. In exchange, added, her voice tight with barely controlled anger, Earth will join the new council as a full member. You will help maintain order during the transition. You will not attack council worlds or forces unless they attack you first. Daniel thought about it. It wasn't everything Earth wanted, but it was more than they had dared hope for. I need to consult with my government. They gave him the time. Daniel transmitted everything back to Earth. President Hayes called for a global vote. For 2 days, humanity debated. Some wanted to keep fighting until the council was completely destroyed. Others argued for accepting the peace offer. In the end, the vote passed with 68% approval. Earth would join the new Galactic Council, not as conquerors but as equals, not to rule but to protect. Daniel returned to the council chamber with Earth's answer. We accept your terms. 6 months later, Captain Daniel Brooks stood in Geneva again. The city had been rebuilt, rising from the ruins like humanity itself. The new Earth embassy to the Galactic Council stood where the old Council embassy had been destroyed. Ambassador Carter prepared for her first official meeting with the reformed council. She wore a formal uniform, Earth's flag on her shoulder. Beside her stood representatives from 20 former subject species, all now free and equal members of the galactic community. Are you nervous? Daniel asked her. Smiled, terrified, but also excited. We're making history, Daniel, real history, not through conquest, but through courage. You were courageous from the start, Daniel said. Standing up to hear when he thought we'd just surrender, you showed them what humanity was capable of. We all did, replied. Every soldier who fought, every scientist who worked on the quantum disruptors, every person who refused to give up hope, that's what won the war. Outside the embassy, a memorial stood. Black marble carved with the names of everyone who died defending Earth. Over 2 million names, representing every nation, every culture, every part of humanity. Daniel visited the memorial every week. He placed his hand on the cold stone and whispered the same words each time. We fought back, we won, and we changed everything. In orbit above Earth, the EDS fleet patrolled alongside ships from the new council. Not as invaders or occupiers, but as peacekeepers. They protected trade routes. They mediated disputes. They watched for threats and stood ready to defend any world that called for help. Admiral Lisa commanded the joint fleet from her flagship. She looked at the diverse crews, humans working alongside aliens who had been enemies months ago. It wasn't perfect. There were still tensions, still mistrust, still problems to solve, but they were trying. That was what mattered. They were trying to build something better. On Earth, children learned about the invasion in schools. They learned about the people who fought and died for freedom. They learned that courage wasn't about being fearless. It was about being terrified and fighting anyway. And in homes across the planet, families gathered to watch the stars. The same stars that had brought enemies now connected them to friends and allies. The galaxy was vast and full of dangers, but humanity had proven they belonged there. They had faced extinction and survived. They had been threatened and fought back. They had been given a choice between slavery and death, and they chose freedom. Earth's final transmission to the Galactic Council wasn't a message of surrender. It was a declaration of strength. It was proof that humanity would not be broken, would not be conquered, would not bow to any force in the universe. And the galaxy had witnessed their power. Not the power of weapons or ships or technology. The power of the human spirit. The power of people who refused to give up no matter the odds. The power of a species that would rather die free than live as slaves. That power changed everything. Members of the Galactic Council, Daniel began. I am here to deliver a message from Earth. On the surface, Morgan watched the tactical displays in Project Defiance's command center. The quantum disruptors had worked better than they hoped. Council forces across the planet were surrendering or dying. The invasion was over. But she knew this was just the beginning. The Council would learn what happened here. They would know that humanity had defeated their enforcement fleet. The question was, what would they do next? Doctor stood beside her. We did it, he said quietly. We actually did it. Yes, replied. But now comes the hard part. The Council knows we're a threat. They'll either leave us alone or they'll come back with everything they have. What do we do? Looked at the display showing human ships pursuing the Council fleet into deep space. We take the fight to them. We show the galaxy that humanity won't be threatened. Not now, not ever. All ships hold position, he ordered. I need to report this to the Council. Something is very wrong with this invasion. On Earth's surface, in bunkers and tunnels and hidden command centers, humanity held its breath. They had survived the first day. They had proven they could fight back. But the real war was just beginning, and everyone knew it. Every corner of the galaxy, Daniel took a breath and began to speak. This is Captain Daniel Brooks of the Earth Defense Force. This message is for the Galactic Council. 2 months ago, you came to our world with threats and ultimatums. You expected us to surrender. You expected us to beg. You were wrong. He paused, letting his words echo across the stars. Earth fought back, and this is what happened next.